Hello, this is Tony Kelly from Birmingham's Breakthrough TV, Our Health is Our Wealth show. On today's show, my special guest is Sophia Morgan Genus, who our paths have crossed quite a lot because she too is in the community doing a lot of stuff and in the health and well-being field. Sophia Morgan Genus, may I welcome you to the show. It's good to have you.
Oh, thank you. Great to be here.
Right, thank you. So, without further ado, I'm going to start at what we would call the very beginning in terms of your early upbringing and childhood. I leave the floor to you, Sophia. Tell us about that in your own way.
Okay, well, I come from Jamaican parents and they came to England. I grew up in London with my dad and my stepmother. And then at the age around about 10, 11, I moved up to Birmingham. So if my accent is a bit strange, that's the reason why.
Okay.
I left from kind of busy London to Kings Norton, which was at the time,
Rural.
yes, very country. You could smell the cows. It was just really, really strange, and a very predominantly white area, and so it was a very culture shock, bit of a change for me. But it was nice to spend time with my mum and my siblings, and I came to my last part of my education was up here as well. So it's a very interesting time going to a school where I was related to every other black person that was on there. So it was very, very strange.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned about schooling. What was that like for you? Just very briefly touch on schooling, especially secondary school.
Yeah, secondary school was very interesting in that it's about us trying to figure out where we're going to go in the future, what I wanted to do. And my nickname was Mother because I would listen to people's problems. And so that was a nickname. So it was a strange nickname for a child. But that's what they used to call me because I was caring and I would listen. And I always wanted to go into the social work profession. That's what I wanted to do. And I remember speaking to the careers officer, the lady that comes in for children. Everybody needs to be very, very cautious of careers officer. And I told them I want to be a social worker, this is what I wanted to do. And they said to me that I wouldn't be able to do that and that I should be a care assistant. Now, I didn't fully understand what a care assistant was. But in essence, what she was saying was that I lacked the qualifications to be a social worker and I should do a job where you don't need any qualifications.
I see.
But it was an advantage that I fully didn't understand why I should be a care assistant and not a social worker. So I ignored that statement, which was a really good thing to do. And I did eventually go on to be a social worker, and got a master's in social work as well. Right. So, don't listen to careers officers sometimes.
Yes, indeed. One has to question what was the career advisor's thinking or rationale behind saying such a thing to you as a young, aspiring black girl going through schooling. You hit it on the head when you said, well, you don't need any qualifications really. So, take second best. And as you rightly said too, youngsters listening here, they mustn't settle for second best. That's what we are about on this show.
Yeah, so definitely. I think it's about having that aspiration, having that hope. And I think that if you're in a role where you're with vulnerable people like children, then it's about making sure you instill that hope and that aspiration. That's what they should be doing. But I think you've got to remember, we're all being exposed to discrimination, to racism, to the aspect of the belief that black people aren't going to achieve.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So as a black person, you're surrounded by that. And as white people, that's reinforced all the time. You cannot live in the Western world without being exposed to that. And so I think their expectations of us are very low. And then it becomes that self-fulfilling prophecy. And on top of that, you've got to remember that when we do anything, we're scrutinized a lot harder.
Yes, indeed.
There was a research study that was done, and it was looking at a law firm, and what they did was send out an assignment to these law firms, so a budding partner, and the only thing that was different, the same name, same work, only thing that was different was one was white and one was black. That was the only difference. And when they looked at the white one, there was mistakes in there on both of them, exactly the same. They didn't see half the mistakes, and they thought, this person would be a good partner. When they thought it was written by a black person, then they saw twice as many
Yes, yes,
mistakes,
yes,
and they
yes,
turned
yes.
around and said this person should come away from law, they're not going to be very
Yeah,
good.
good.
So you've got to think about that. If that's the reality and that's in such a high level job, and that's a reality where we're going to be scrutinised so much more, then you've got to realise that that's going to have a knock-on effect. That means we're not going to get the jobs that other white people would get at that same level.
Yes.
We have to be so much more better to achieve less.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and so that's the real situation, and we have to prepare our children for that. Which in a
reality.
sense we do, but it's a
Yes.
very hard reality because we're always being told things are equal.
Yes, but we know different.
Yeah.
Now, I know you went into social work, but because I know you that well, Sophia, prior to that, you went into psychiatric nursing.
Yes, I did.
So tell us a bit about that before we move back into the social work angle. So.
Yeah. So my aspiration was to go into social work, but I was young at the time, and they liked people to be a little bit older, a little bit more mature.
Oh.
But with nurses, you can get in at 18. So that was my stepping stone to go into the nursing. And in fact, I walked into the School of Nursing to get more information, and I came out on the course.
Wow, as easy as that.
Yes.
But when you say you came out on the course, the listeners, especially the young people listening, you did have the necessary qualifications.
Yes, I had the
Yeah,
necessary
the
qualifications. I'd been
qualifications.
to college, so I had qualifications. I don't even know what qualifications.
Since there were.
No, this is a long time ago.
Yes.
Long time ago. But yeah, so I went in. I said I just wanted more information about it, and they thought I'd be a good candidate. At the time, it was a School of Nursing, so it's a bit different now. It's all at university now. So before
Right.
there was School of Nursing, and it was psychiatric nursing at All Saints Hospital, and it's not too far away from here.
So let me ask you in terms of psychiatric nursing, you could do that branch of nursing without having to do general nursing first? You could go straight into psychiatry, or did you have to do the general nursing and then specialize?
Right. At the time, you could go straight into psychiatric nursing.
Oh, I see.
So what you
Right.
did, you had 6 weeks in the School of Nursing, and then you were on the wards. And then during that time, a couple of years later, is when the Project 2000 came out, and then that was where students were in a year doing general and then specialising.
Specialising, right.
So I was just before. That's how old it.
Don't give your age away, Sophia. Okay, right. Let me move on to ask you, why then this sudden change from, how long did you do the psychiatric nursing for? And then why did you then decide, I'm going to head and retrain to become a social worker, ending up doing a master's in social work as well? Why
Yeah.
that flip or switch?
Well, what happened is that my dream was to go into social work, so this was really a stepping stone, and it filled that gap. And I always think it's good to have a backup plan anyway.
Plan B.
And so when I'd finished training as a nurse, I actually applied straight away to go on a social work course, because that was what I really wanted to do. But the advantage of having this nursing was I was able to work nights, which helped to pay for my social work. It was a degree I was doing at that time, so it helped to pay for my social work degree. So that was really useful, and I had all that experience. Now, normally when you go from a qualification into another one, you can jump a year or jump some
Yes,
time,
credits.
get some credits for that time, very much. And but we think of academia as being fair. Academia is not fair. It took them a year to tell me that I didn't have to do the first year.
Really? By which time you're done the first
Exactly.
year.
Exactly. Do you know what I mean? And that's when I fully understood, I got a taste of the imbalance in life, because I was still very young and very thinking very positively. But I saw in education how black students were being treated so much differently than white students. It was very, very harsh, actually. It was very painful. When I finished my degree, then I actually started to I worked for an agency and ended up working in Sandwell Hospital.
Okay.
Which is really
Full
strange. So I was
circle.
full circle. So I was social working, but I was actually inside the hospital. So it was a full circle. And then that was when I first encountered in Sandwell. And then I've worked in Sandwell since that time. That was in '97 when I started working in Sandwell. And I still work part-time as a social worker now. I work specialising in mental health. I worked in an organisation, a part of it called the Assertive Engagement Team, and I did that for the majority of my career. I've done that, which is working with people with severe and enduring mental health. And what I do is a role what's now called an AMP, which is approved mental health social worker. So I assist people that need to go into hospital if they need to go into hospital as well. And I train other AMPs on the course specifically on black mental health as well in Derby and Birmingham University. I do that.
Well, that's good to hear, because I'm going to move to a question about COVID-19 and looking specifically at the impact it has had in terms of people's mental health. The lockdown, the pandemic, people having to be at home, not being able to socialize, not being able to go out and so on. With your mental health background, give the listeners, and even if this is going to come out post-lockdown or after lockdown, how can people, in terms of looking at their mental health, we talk about physical health a lot, tell us more on the mental health side, especially with all the fear factor and the lockdown and pandemic. Broaden it for us from a mental health perspective, please.
Definitely. I think bring it all together, this aspect of stress. And I think what happens, this kind of stresses that we can get in life could be things like moving house or change or relationship issues. Things like this are causing stress. Health, do you know what I mean? Finances. These are things that can be very, very stressful. And right now we've encountered a lot of those stresses. So people that haven't known if they're going into work or if they've got a job, they don't know about their finances, they don't know about their health, the health of their family, they don't know what the future, there's been changes. There's so much information been going on, which has caused a lot of stress. Well, control and lack of control is a big factor. So to help you with that, you can think about what things can you control. So you can decide how much information, especially if it's negative information that you're taking on board, you can control that. You can turn around about how you're living your day, and you talk about physical aspects, and that is still very, very important. So the foods that you're eating, because that can cause you extra stress. So you can't control the outside stress, but you can control if you're eating stressful things. You can control if you're watching stressful things, if you're around stressful people, if you're on the internet or WhatsApp and you're in groups and they're all talking about the COVID and that's causing you stress. You can make choices and you can control that. So even though you can't control the event, what you can control is your response to that event, and depending on how you control that response can determine the outcome. So if you find that going for a walk relaxes you, listening to good music, watching a comedy, that relaxes you, then make those your tools and put them into your lifestyle to help you to cope much more effectively.
Okay. One of your answers, which I really loved, was all of it, but this particular bit where you mentioned about we need to be able to be in control of ourselves. I'll give you, and you might be able to comment on this, I'll give you a quick example. An 80-year-old woman, because I've been ringing a lot of elderly people living on their own during this whole pandemic and lockdown situation. And she said to me she's depressed. And I said, why are you depressed? She said, she gets up, she turns on the BBC News 24 channel, news, and from morning till night, she watches all of that. I say, excuse me? You need to watch one news bulletin a day. And you mentioned it. Laughter is the best medicine. The comedies, the Hello Hellos, the Oliver Samuels, the Keeping Up Appearances, the Ain't Half Hot Mom. Wouldn't you be advising people to watch those?
Yeah, it's about your environment. So let's go through. So physical, your environment. So a lot of people have been staying in their pajamas all day, or they've been staying inside the house and just sitting in bed, from bed to couch, couch to bed, kind of stuff. So you don't know what physical things they've been feeling low in the mood and been using food in order to fulfill that, and comforting eating and using foods with high sugar, high fat, and so that's been causing another problem. So you can look at all the physical things. They've not been doing physical activity. You know that physical activity helps to lift your mood. So you can put on that old tape that I've been using, the Tybo tapes that from back in the day. And do you know what I mean? Put them on, or do some dancing at home, putting some music and dancing, so have some kind of movement. Intellectually, you're right. Yes, you want to be informed, but you can control that.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And you can use this time to read the book that you've always wanted to read, to write the book that you've always wanted to write. Do you know what I mean? To do all those things that you wanted to do, to educate yourself and things. You always wanted to study or learn a new language. This is the opportunity to do that, so you can fill up that time in a positive way and learn how to do that puzzle you've always wanted to do. So then we've got to look at emotional. Well, now, if that's causing you emotional distress and you're on those groups and they're causing you emotional distress, now you can take control of that and say, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to do things that fulfill me emotionally. Relax in a wonderful bath. Be around people, contact the people that you love. contact that person you've been meaning to call for so long,
No,
you haven't got around
not
to it,
to
you
do-
never had the time, but now you've got the
Got time
time.
to do
So
it.
you do those kind of things, and that brings them to that social, choose who you decide to be social around. So if you're in those groups and they're all negative, you're on social media, there's other groups on there which are very positive. Join those groups. We look at being grateful and appreciation and positive affirmations. Have that kind of balance that's going on. And spiritual, yes, you might not be able to go to your place of worship, but there are things online that you can participate on, and then you can watch on YouTube as well. So there are things that you can do, but it's about you taking control and you saying, okay, then I'm making these choices because these choices are going to be for the betterment of me and not to go into that cycle of depression.
Right. I just love those answers. Which sort of leads me to the next question as to, well, you're at home. I presume you've been doing with your family, if you have family within your home, you've been doing some of these things that you've just been mentioning. Who's at home with you, and how has the pandemic, the lockdown been for you and the family?
Oh, well, I work really hard, and I said I work part-time in social work, and I have my own business as well. So being at home hasn't necessarily been a problem because I've been very busy. I have 2 children left at home, a daughter who's 20 and my youngest one's going to be 16 next month. Right. So it's been very good in that, I mean, we like to talk anyway. We like to have meal times that we can chat and debate. My children, they're very good at
right.
Yeah, they're very good. They're very good at it. So we can get into some very very long in detailed debate. So that's a wonderful thing. My youngest one, a little bit frustrated not being able to get to school and having contact with their friends, but they're on the phone and they're chatting and they're zooming, so they're still having that contact that way. So my other children who are not at home, then we Zoom and we got a WhatsApp group, a family group, and people are dropping jokes and what's ever happening, they're having debates online. Right. So it feels still good. And my own personal siblings and my mum's in Jamaica at the moment, and my siblings are quite far, so we do Zoom. We do Zoom, we do WhatsApp chat as well. And the thing about it is, because you can physically see that person, it's in real time. It's nice because it feels like that person's actually there with you, and we can chat. I do my hair with my sister, and we're there together, and we're doing the hair together, and we're socializing and we're chatting. So it's it's nice.
So the joys of technology have really assisted during this whole lockdown period, because if we didn't have it, remember the days when you'd have to write a letter back to the Caribbean and you'd have to go by airmail or air letter and take 2 weeks to get there.
And the reply was 2 weeks to get back.
So technology has its uses, although I'm known for the executive producer Shannon Ricketts of the show will tell you, I don't do technology.
Yes, I remember.
I'm a technophobe. People say, Tony, stop saying that. But you clearly are on top of it. Well, you have to, because you have your own business, which we're going to come on to in a bit as well. Okay, so
but you have to get a balance with technology as well. And I think that even turning the technology off, it can be very, very positive as well. And having those quality times. Me and my children, we like to play dominoes. So we play dominoes and Monopoly. And that's the kind of thing where you might have some music in the background and you're playing. And sometimes you need those kind of human to human social contact and social interactions. So be careful with too much technology as well.
All right. I'm going to cut to the chase and ask you, because of your background and so on, we'll come into some of that later. Why do you think black people in Britain have been more seriously impacted by the coronavirus and COVID-19 in terms of deaths, in terms of infections, in terms of hospitalization, etc.? What's your view on it?
Yeah, well, the black community are, by nature, we're the frontline staff. So that's a big factor. That exposure has been a big factor in the fact that we're doing the transport, the nursing. Even though we're not, when they show images, we're not there. In fact, we are there. Even if it's the nursing staff, it was the cleaning staff, the porter staff, we're there. Do you know what I mean? So that kind of exposure in nursing homes and so forth. Also, you've got to remember that we talked briefly about that aspect of the discrimination and that biasness that goes in. Well, that goes through, it just because it's in the medical field doesn't mean it's all of a sudden it stops.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So there's an expectation with the black community that our pain threshold is very, very high. There's also an assumption that we want drugs. Do you know what I mean? Which means that when we go in saying that we're in pain, discomfort, we're not being treated the same as our white counterparts. Do you know what I mean? We're not being believed as much as our white counterparts, and that has a knock-on effect. Now, we don't trust the health system as well. There's a history of us being mistreated within the health systems, with experiments being done on us without us even knowing about it. So these are kind of things which are we're fearful about, we're extra cautious about. And so it's really hard to go to somebody who we know has been very oppressive, and all of a sudden we're going to them for help. Do you know what I mean? We're going to do that as a last resort, not as a first resort. So all these different kind of factors can come into play, really. Do you know what I mean? And I know that if you read the newspapers, they talk about the fact that our comorbidity, and the thing about it, if that was consistent, then it would be consistent in all other countries as well.
I agree with you on that.
Do you know
I
what I
have
mean?
to take my hat off to you on that one. That would be the same in the Caribbean, but it doesn't follow through.
Yeah, and Africa especially.
And Africa as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Sophia, I know you as an advocate, because we've met at various community events and so on, of health and well-being. Tell us exactly, what does your involvement in that entail as an advocate, as an activist, a community person leading on this health and well-being agenda? You've touched on some of it, but tell us a bit more. What does that entail for you?
Okay, so yes, my profession, being psychiatric nurse and social worker, I'm exposed to that kind of the health field that way. And also with my own business, with Morgan Genius Limited, we focus on health and well-being, so specialising in magnesium products. So when about 12, 13 years ago, I met a gentleman called Noel Rogers, and he was a biochemist, and he's the one that introduced me to the aspects of magnesium. And I'm thinking, well, I've been in the health profession for a long time. Why don't I know about it? And then we talked about the meat industry, the dairy industry, the pharmaceutical industry, where it's really designed to make people unwell, not to kill, but unwell. Do you know what I mean? That's how they get their money. And it's about thinking, well, let's look at the human body, and instead of looking at all these different elements, let's bring it all the way down to the human cell. What does a cell need in order to be healthy and well? And if you've got healthy cells which make up your body, then you've got a healthy body. So it's about looking at how do we alkaline the body? What minerals, what nutrients does your body need? If you turn it down to that part, what causes the body to be acid? And when you go down to that element, then it's about mastering health and well-being. So I thought this is something that needs to be shared, and that's how I started into looking at specifically about magnesium, because it's a mineral of relaxation, rejuvenation. It's like the engine behind your body, to help your body to function more effectively. So it's so vital to health and well-being, and but 80 to 90% of us are depleted in this mineral. So that was my journey on spreading that word out and spreading that to as many people as I can. I love to talk about magnesium. I think it's so important. I want people to use it. And so we developed products, which is bath salts, which is in its natural form, lotions, oils, and body butters, body wash, so that you've got no excuse. Get the magnesium in, you know. Ideally, it would have been in your leafy greens, but we're not eating enough leafy greens, and how food's being manufactured and farmed nowadays means that it's depleted of vital minerals. So before, the waste products would end up on the food as manure, and those minerals would be recycled. Now that waste product is put in the ocean, and chemicals are put on the food. Do you know what I mean? So now we're eating more, but we're malnourished. Do you know? Because there's no nutrients in the food as what it would be. So if, for example, we had a tomato from the 1940s, if I wanted to give you the same amount of nutrition, I have to give you 10 or 15 tomatoes in order for you to get the same level of nutrition from that food. So our food is very poor, you know, and so you're always feeling hungry all the time, because you know you're not getting satisfied because your body's lacking in those nutrients. So a lot of processed foods take away the things like the fiber and the important things that help you to satisfy your body. The minerals, the nutrients are burnt out. We overcook food, so we're lacking on so many different levels. So it's about getting back to nature. So because we've been exposed to that, it makes our bodies very acid, and it's about what can we do to alkaline our body. And so we've got things like the fruit, the vegetables, they're alkalining, water, hydrating and alkalining, movement to help to release the toxins. Magnesium helps to rebalance and rejuvenate and alkaline. So it's about pushing all the way back into that natural state. Do you know what I mean? And eating more foods in its natural whole state. That's so important. If you have, no matter what ailment it is, you've moved too far away from nature. Go back to nature, and your body's designed to heal and repair given the right situation.
Right.
You know? So that's what I.
Okay.
That's what
Now
I
you
recommend.
mentioned things like bath salts.
Yeah.
You mentioned things like lotions. So these are all things that you're actually putting on your skin. What exactly do they do? And the various other things you mentioned, which are all sort of skin related. How do they
Yeah.
replace the magnesium that we've lost?
Right. So with magnesium, because it's a natural relaxant, you're limited how much you can absorb orally via your digestive tract because it would relax your bowels. Yeah. So if you remember milk magnesium or Andrews
yes,
when you was younger,
I remember
you
milk
remember?
magnesium.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you
Oh,
had an
gosh,
upset
that's-
stomach, you would have that, but it would
right.
release your bowels. Okay. So we don't want it to do that. But remember, your skin is your biggest organ, and so what you put on your skin is also important. So that's the thing we need to remember. So what you put in your hair. So that a lot of black women might relax their hair or put different chemicals in hair. We need to be very careful because that's going into your body. What we're putting on our skin, the chemicals that goes in our skin is going through into our body as well. So we've got to be very careful and make sure that whatever we put in our hair and in our skin, we can put in our mouth. You know, that's important.
Right.
You know, because it's your biggest organ, it's absorbing it in. So with magnesium, it's much more effective, especially magnesium chloride, which is what we use, much more effective via the skin because it's bypassing your digestive tract and your body's absorbing all that it needs. You can't overdose on it, your body will take exactly what it needs, but it's best to go via your skin.
Right. Okay, that's interesting to know. And the fact that you brought up milk of magnesium, I remember
Do you
that.
remember that?
Yes, I certainly do.
Very hard to get right now.
Now, yes, I haven't seen that around for
Yeah,
years.
yes.
I don't know if you'd get it in the Caribbean still, but certainly you wouldn't. I don't
Yeah,
think you'd get
it's
it.
very hard to get right now. So,
Okay,
yeah.
but these products that you've just mentioned, which are all good for you, are equally effective in terms of
Yeah, definitely.
providing you with the magnesium that you need. Huh?
Definitely, because you're limited via orally, so via your skin is much better. So soaking for 30 minutes in the bath is ideal, or we've got oils which are very quickly absorbed, or we've got lotions which gives you, it can moisturising as well as boosting your magnesium levels. And so right now, when we're going through a lot of stress, our body is releasing magnesium because it releases it tries to relax us. So this is the time we need to get our magnesium levels high. We can do that by increasing our watermelon, our bran, our almonds, our avocado, foods rich, our leafy greens,
Right,
rich
okay.
in magnesium. We can also do it by using magnesium products as well.
See,
and
if-
avoiding things which are causing stress like meat, fish, alcohol, dairy, coffee,
Right.
soda pop, things like that.
Especially, yes, fizzy pop and so
Yeah.
on, and especially red meat. We've spoken a lot about magnesium and about the skin and what the skin absorbs. I'd like your take on lack of vitamin D in us as black people with not enough sunlight and so on. What's your take on that? Because I'm sure you must have read up and probably give
Yeah,
advice on vitamin D.
I have. I think I've got a YouTube video specifically on that. Yes, yeah, I think it's very, very important. As black people, especially we're on this northern hemisphere, there's not much sunshine, and it takes us 2 weeks of sunshine before we take our coats off.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So that's, we don't really expose our skins very well. So yes, the darker you are, you need to get that vitamin D. It's most important that you get it, as opposed to a supplement. Be very careful with the supplements because some of them are full of waste products. But it's better that you get natural sunshine.
sunlight,
Is going to
I
be the
agree.
best way, but it can be very, very hard. Now you got to remember that when you get the sunlight, you're getting vitamin D2. But if you're low in magnesium, then your body will find it hard to convert the vitamin D2 into vitamin D3, which is what you actually use, which will help to strengthen your bones and help to balance your calcium levels. So you're right. If you can get that holiday in. When the sun comes out, make sure that you're walking in the sunlight, getting that exposure onto your skin so your body can produce it, and also having your leafy greens and your magnesium so that your body can process it, because it's all linked. Do you know what I mean? It's linked.
I'm glad you mentioned leafy greens, and you've mentioned it about 3 times now. Because when I was growing up as a child in Jamaica, although I'm British born, grew up in Jamaica, leafy greens for me was, I'd say, that's rabbit food. So the lettuce, the kale, the spinach, the callaloo, the broccoli, all of those leafy greens, which are, ladies' fingers, okra, all of those things. I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole. Now it's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
I eat all of those now. But yes, those are the leafy greens I think you're referring to. Cabbage,
Yeah.
lettuce, kale, spinach, callaloo.
Exactly. But remember, our taste buds, we can educate our taste buds. And yes, our taste buds is quickly goes towards sweet things. So if we know this, we can start with things like green smoothies, where you combined your sweetness of fruit with the leafy greens. So that's a good way of introducing leafy greens to young children. If you do that from a young age as well, then they're already adapted and get used to it. You know, so if you're bringing up your children on processed foods and these beige foods and not giving them the variety, then that's what they become accustomed to. Do you know what I mean? They think, oh, I'm hungry. This is what is what food is. Do you know what I mean? But you've got to do this way. Take away the fire from whatever you're eating. Take the fire away, and then look at it and tell me whether you can still eat it. So if I give you that raw chicken and I give you a mango or cucumber, and I'm giving you that, you know what's food is.
It is, yes.
Do you know what I mean? That child knows what's food is.
Yes.
The one they're going to say, I can't eat that, and one they can eat. Do you know what I mean? So make sure you're introducing more foods, whole foods, more raw foods into your diet and your children's diet. So if you have adapted a certain way, try not to allow your children to do that. Try and introduce it from now, your children, your grandchildren.
Children,
I know
yes.
you want to give them a sweetie to make them happy, but give them a peach, give them something that's much more, can have that sweet
Grapes.
taste, or grapes or something, but it's going to be actually good for them long term, and create those good habits. Do you know what I mean? That's what we need, those better habits.
Right. Now, on this Our Health is Our Wealth show, this has been fascinating hearing all of this coming from you. So there you are, yes, working part-time within the social work arena, but also as being a black woman in business. So consider for me, how has it been over how long you've been doing this? I'm talking the sense of both sexism and racism. Have those come into play at all, and how have you overcome those hurdles to get to where you are?
Yeah, I mean, having your own business, it can have its own challenges in its own right. And I think that that if you think that you're going to go into business and it's going to be easy sailing, that could be a disaster just thinking that. But you can learn from all those different challenges. And so what you will find, and what I've experienced, is sometimes you might talk with males, and they'll talk to you as if you don't understand things. Do you know what I mean? And so that can be looked down. So you hear that, you understand that, you know, people are expressing themselves. Sometimes I think people, whether it's done spitefully, do you know what I mean? It might not be. It's just their own kind of ignorance. So you can look past that. As a black woman, there's all these kind of challenges with my own personal business. I went to another company for assistance, and they were very welcoming, very open. And it was a white company. It was very opening, and in fact, what they did is stole my idea. You know, and you think, oh wow, this is that was the first opening to the corporate world for me, where I could say, and they won awards on my products. Do you know what I mean? You're like, wow, this is it was a eye opener to the business world. It's not like the social work world, and that idea that everybody wants to help you, that kind of thing. Oh, that isn't it. You really need to protect yourself and learn.
Dog eat dog.
Yeah,
Oh
of course.
Wow.
And so it's about not allowing things like that to put you down, but it's realizing that everything in life is a learning experience, and you can learn from it and grow. Do you know what I mean? And I think that you have to rise above. So when you see those negativities, whether it's going to be in sexism, racism, whatever capacity it's going to be, it's about you got to be true to you.
Yeah.
You know, so I can't allow other people's behaviors to affect my behavior.
Right,
I have to be the best me that I can be.
Good advice.
You know, so and that's how I kind of, that's the approach that I've taken. So, and it's worked well.
Well, let me ask you then, Sophia. Who then is your role model? Who do you look up to for inspiration, and why?
I try to have positive people around me. So I have a masterclass group that I've joined, and where we contact each other on a weekly basis, just to find out where we're at, what's going on, get that support, get the ideas. And so the people in those master groups, the two that I work with there, they're absolutely amazing. So they've got their own businesses, both black women actually in that one. I was part of a bigger business group. I mean, that shut down due to the COVID, that shut down. But that was another place where I was inspired by people working in business. I have a personal mentor who he's not in the beauty business, he's in the alcohol business, but he has got the skills that can be transferred over, and so I am in contact with him quite frequently, and he guides me through. I also like to surround myself by positive people. So we was with the Jamaica diaspora. We were there
Indeed,
together,
yes,
and we
indeed.
was there around people who are proactive,
Yes,
doing things.
indeed.
And the chair, I'm in close contact with the old chair and the new chair,
And the new chair as well.
and the vice chair.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean?
indeed.
So it's about surrounding yourself
Yeah.
with those positive
Like-minded
examples,
people. Mhm.
examples of what can be. Do you know what I mean? And so that is what inspires me, and that can be on the internet if you're watching people on the internet, or it could be people in the real world that you can do that with. And sometimes it's members of my own family who have come over diversity, that come over challenges, and they've got through it. Or it's about people that are in the community that have their own businesses and they've been successful. All those things give me inspiration.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good to hear. So, in this age of social media, Sophia, how can anyone listening to your inspiring discussion today on our Health is Our Wealth show, how can anyone get in touch with you, especially whether to you give a talk, because you're quite motivational, that clearly comes across in terms of your products, etc. Give us some of your social media contacts so we can put it out there for people to know about.
Yeah, definitely. I can't hide. So if you put in Morgan Genius, you find me. Yeah, me and my daughter, that's it. It's Morgan Genius. So you can go to morgangenius.com with a website. You can go to YouTube with Morgan Genius Magnesium, on Instagram, Facebook. So if you put in Morgan Genius, you find me smiling back at you. So
Right. And for the benefit, people might think genius is, oh, she's talking about her being a genius. That's not how it's spelled. So you better spell it out for them.
So it's spelled very similar. You can call me Genius if you like, but it's spelled very similar. But it's like Genius, but without the I.
Without
so
the I.
Genus, Morgan Genius.
And that will
like
take
that
you to a host of websites
Yeah.
and social
I
platforms.
just can't hide.
No,
I can't hide.
no. Well, that's good for viewers and to know, so
Yeah.
they can then, if needs be, get in contact.
That's it. And if you want to email, then it's inquiries@morgangenius.com,
Right.
or on the website we've got a contact form. You can complete that, and I'll get that message as well. So
Okay, all right. Let me ask you then. You've shared with us a wealth of experience. I'm going to ask you, what is or has been your greatest achievement in life so far, and why?
my greatest achievement, I think, I hold on to my family as something which is precious and dear to me, and so that's, I think it is. I wish a lot of people might think getting some kind of financial wealth or academic wealth, anything like that. But in fact, having those special time and those moments with my children, I have 3 children that I gave birth to, and I've got 5 children in total. So I've got a stepson, I've got a son who's I cleave to, and then I've got 3 of my biological children. So my 5 children and my grandchildren are the most precious things to me, and it's those connections which I love. And so that's with my immediate family, and also those connections when I have my friends and family. Those connections are the best achievement. Do you know what I mean? The best thing. I've always believed if somebody comes into my life, they stay in my life, and I love that. I love that connection. That's the importance for life for me. That love.
I love that answer, and that just proves why you went into both nursing and social work. You're a people-centered person. That empathy, and not just sympathy here, because we're talking about empathy, putting yourself into one's shoes and so on, clearly comes across, and that's to be applauded, because it's not about the material things and the academia and the how much money we have in the bank or how many big cars or houses we have. A people-centered person. That's very good, and it follows through in terms of what you're also doing out there in the wider community. And it's also about giving back, which is what you're doing. Very important. We're coming to the end now. What final thoughts would you, Sophia Morgan Genius, want to leave with the Breakthrough TV, Our Health is Our Wealth, viewers and listeners, because some might not be able to view but still listen? What final thoughts would you want to share with them going forward?
I think with regards to your health, definitely look at that holistic approach, and it's looking at your physical, your intellectual, your emotional, your social, and your spiritual needs. See yourself in that way. Always move closer to nature if there's any kind of ailment, or just generally look for love and connection, and try to just be the best person that you can be. And you're the best person at being you. So don't look at other people. Look within, and just try and to grow and establish yourself from your perspective. So be the best you that you can be. Yeah.
From that I get, always be close to nature. I love that. And then I also like the bit about looking within yourself.
Yes.
Yes, those two things resonate with me. I have to thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
I've really enjoyed hearing you. We've known each other for quite some time, and we see each other at events and so on, and we've been involved in other things and so on. But sitting here and having the conversation with you and seeing you open up so much more about your whole situation and your love for your family and for mankind, or I should say womankind, because it's not only men on there. I don't like the word mankind, but I've really enjoyed having you on our Health is Our Web show, and I hope the viewers and listeners get something out of what you've said today, because it has been very informative.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
You're welcome. Thanks to our sponsors, the Afro-Caribbean Millennium Center on Dudley Road, New Style Radio 98.7 FM, Breakthrough Media Studios, and Breakthrough TV.